What happens when you die? Does everything simply disappear? Does consciousness end when the heart stops beating? Or does something continue beyond the body? Thousands of years ago, on a battlefield called Kurukshetra, a warrior named Arjuna asked questions that are still relevant today. And Krishna's answer was far more profound than simply telling him what happens after death. And to understand what happens after death, Krishna first asks us to understand something much deeper. Who are you? Chapter 1. You are not the body. Krishna tells Arjuna, the soul is never born, nor does it ever die. Bhagavad Gita 2.20 says, the body is born. The body grows old. The body eventually dies. But according to Krishna, the true self, the Atman, does not undergo these changes. Chapter 2. Krishna compares the process to something very simple. In Bhagavad Gita 2.22, he says, just as a person gives up old clothes and puts on new ones, the soul gives up old bodies and enters new ones. Think about it. You don't consider yourself to be your clothes. You wear them. And when they become old, you replace them. Krishna says the body works in a similar way. The soul occupies a body for a period of time. Then the body is left behind. This is the foundation of the Gita's teaching about death. The body dies, the self does not. Chapter 3. What happens immediately after death? Death is not necessarily an instantaneous disappearance. The physical body stops functioning, but the subtle aspects of the individual, often described as the mind, impressions, desires, and karmic tendencies, continue. The Bhagavad Gita describes the soul as moving from one body to another. But here's something important. We should distinguish between spiritual belief and scientific fact. Science has not established that a soul leaves the body and enters another body. But throughout history, people have reported experiences that they interpret as evidence of something beyond physical death. Near-death experiences, unusual memories, reports of past life memories, and profound mystical experiences. None of these automatically prove an afterlife, but they do raise an interesting question. Is consciousness completely produced by the brain, or is there something more? We still don't have a definitive answer. Chapter 4. The Journey of the Soul. Do something bad and something bad happens to you. But the concept is much deeper. Karma refers broadly to action and its consequences. Our actions create impressions. Our intentions influence our mind. Our desires shape our behavior. And according to the Gita, these tendencies influence our future existence. Imagine someone who spends their entire life driven by anger, greed, and attachment. Those tendencies don't simply disappear because the physical body dies. In the traditional Hindu understanding, they become part of the subtle continuity that influences what comes next. This is why spiritual traditions emphasize not only what you do, but also why you do it. Your intention matters. Your attachment matters. Your state of consciousness matters. Chapter 5. Heaven and Hell. So, does Hinduism believe in heaven and hell? Yes, but the idea is somewhat different from the permanent heaven or hell concept found in some other traditions. Many Hindu philosophies describe higher and lower realms of existence. But these states are generally not considered the soul's permanent destination. They are temporary. Eventually, the cycle continues. This cycle is called Samsara, birth, death, rebirth, again and again. And what determines the direction of this journey? Karma, but there is something even more important. Liberation. The idea is to not get the birth again and again. Chapter 6. What is Moksha? If reincarnation continues indefinitely, you might ask, when does it stop? According to Hindu philosophy, the ultimate goal is moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. But moksha isn't simply going to a beautiful place after death. It is described as realizing your true nature, the realization that I am not merely this body. I am not merely my thoughts. I am not merely my personality. The deeper spiritual traditions ask us to investigate. Who am I? If your body changes, if your thoughts change, if your emotions change, if your personality changes, then who is the one witnessing all of these changes? This question lies at the heart of many Indian spiritual traditions. Chapter 7. Why are we afraid of death? Maybe we're not really afraid of death itself. We're afraid of losing everything we've identified with: our body, our relationships, our possessions, our achievements, our identity. Death reminds us that none of these things are permanent, but the Bhagavad Gita asks us to look beyond what can be lost. Krishna says, "Weapons cannot cut the soul, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, and wind cannot dry it." The message is not simply, "Don't be afraid of death." It's, "Understand what you truly are." Chapter 8. The strange thing about death. We think of death as something that happens at the end of life, but biologically, change is happening constantly. The body you had 10 years ago isn't exactly the body you have today. Your thoughts from 10 years ago aren't the same. Your beliefs have changed. Your relationships have changed. Your personality has evolved. In a sense, you're constantly losing old versions of yourself, and new versions appear. So perhaps death is not completely separate from life. Perhaps death is the ultimate expression of a process that has been happening all along. Change. Everything that is born changes. Everything that changes eventually disappears, and something new emerges. Chapter 9. So what actually happens after death? The honest answer is, we don't know with certainty. Science can explain what happens to the physical body, but what happens to consciousness remains one of humanity's greatest mysteries. The Bhagavad Gita offers one answer: the body dies. The soul does not. The journey continues according to karma and reincarnation until liberation, moksha. Chapter 10. Ending. One day, this body will return to nature. What happens to consciousness after that? Perhaps it ends. Perhaps it continues. Perhaps the ancient sages understood something we haven't discovered yet. We don't know. But the Bhagavad Gita gives us a powerful possibility.